Well, good morning, everyone. Kristen, can you confirm everyone can see and hear me?
Yep, we are good.
Very good. Well, good morning. Thank you so much for joining us this morning for the 11th Annual Child Advocates Breakfast. My name is Brad McGettrick, and I currently serve as the president of the board of Greater Richmond SCAN. We're really thankful all of you took time to join us virtually and sharing what's going to be a tremendous program. Glad to see some new names on the registration list, along with many of our longtime supporters of SCAN. I'd like to extend a special welcome to those in the Protector Circle. These are supporters of SCAN that have made a significant contribution to our annual fund. Normally, if we were in person, I would ask you to stand and be recognized, but please know that we do see you and appreciate you. I look forward to when we can do this again in real life, or IRL, as the kids say. So Greater Richmond SCAN is a local nonprofit organization dedicated solely to the prevention and treatment of child abuse and neglect in the Greater Richmond area. SCAN was founded in 1991 and includes 5 main programs: the Circle Preschool, Family Support Program, court-appointed special advocates, or CASA, community programs, and child advocacy centers. And today we're going to be honoring the work of our Circle Preschool program, the Family Support Program, and community programs. The Circle Preschool is a really special place that offers early childhood education and mental health treatment to children who have experienced trauma, and all of that in a very healing environment. Our incredible caregivers, one of which we'll hear from today, work with children and their families to help reduce the long-term effects of that trauma. The Family Support Program is an excellent resource for those families who have experienced or at risk of experiencing child abuse or neglect. Through their efforts, families and their caregivers of children are able to enhance their parenting skills and gain access to many other community resources. SCAN's community programs really encompasses all of SCAN's prevention programs and initiatives that are at the community, state, and organizational level. These programs are focused on the prevention of child maltreatment through the advancement of protective factors and trauma-informed approaches in organizations, communities, and systems. So it takes a lot of dedicated people to run these programs, run these 3 programs, and we'll hear from some of them this morning. And as I mentioned, SCAN is comprised of 5 main programs, and there's really no better person to lead this organization than Janine Harper. Janine is the executive director of SCAN, and her positive influence on children is felt throughout the Greater Richmond area. And I'd like to introduce her now to introduce our speakers. Thanks again.
Thank you, Brad, for that introduction and for your service to SCAN. We're very grateful for you. As Brad said, thank you all for being with us this morning. It is wonderful to have people who have been with us on the long walk and journey as we seek to protect children and strengthen families in our community. And for those who are new to us, thank you for your interest in our mission, and we look forward to getting to know you better and sharing this mission and work with you. I have the distinct honor this morning of introducing our 3 speakers for our program this morning. First, Lucy Block-Rivington is our clinical services supervisor for our family support program. Lucy is a licensed professional counselor, an amazing human being, a mom of 3, and really brings such a wealth of knowledge as it relates to the safety and well-being of children, and also to the critical role that caregiving and caregivers play as it relates to their child's well-being and ultimately happiness. Tamika Daniel joins us as our behavioral health community organizer. She has been with us for about 2 years. She is an East End resident, a mom of 4, and amazing advocate, amazing trainer, and has really helped elevate our work in so many ways. So welcome this morning to Tamika. And finally, Sarah Bailey is a caregiver, the mom of one of our graduates from our Circle Preschool program that Brad spoke about. She is amazing, resilient, strong, and such a caring person. And we're just delighted that she wanted to share her experience at Circle Preschool with us this morning. So with that, Lucy, if you would like to start and tell us a little bit about your role and the work in the family support program with caregivers. Thank you.
Thanks, Janine. Hi, I am Lucy Block-Remington. I'm the clinical supervisor of SCAN's Family Support Program. While there is much I could share about Family Support Program and the work that's done with families, today I am going to focus in on what Family Support Program does to support caregivers. You may hear me use the word parent or caregiver interchangeably as I speak about this topic. Whether I say parent or caregiver, I am referring to the most important relationship in the life of a child. The relationship a child has with their primary caregiver or parent is the seed. It's the beginning and the foundation for so much of what happens for that child while they are young, but also into adulthood. So figuring out what caregivers need then to be successful in that role is crucial for children and the mission of protecting them. So Family Support Program is the arm of SCAN that is typically responding to caregivers once something has occurred in a family. When there has been an incident of child abuse or neglect that has landed in court, or concerns that have landed maybe in child protective services, or they're concerned that there's a high risk of abuse or neglect, clinicians, facilitators within our Family Support Program are available to respond with services that address those risk factors and vulnerabilities that place the children at continued risk of harm. There are no bad parents in the Family Support Program. I know that, as we deliver this information and you hear statistics, it can be hard to reconcile some of the stories of trauma and abuse with that statement. Bad things do happen to children, but what we know is that these things have happened in the context of so much hardship for caregivers and children. All parents need help and support. And when this is not present for a family, there's an increased risk of those bad things occurring. Some of you listening may be parents or are close to people that are parenting. Any of us who have experienced that role or have witnessed that role know how it can get scary and overwhelming and just how huge it all can be. The caregivers that we support at SCAN may enter into that parenting role with little to no what we call protective factors kind of in their corner. So parents, after being sent to us, maybe by the courts or child protective services, they sit down with us at Family Support Program and they share just bits of what sometimes are extensive trauma histories. They may report things like experiencing little stability in their own childhood or are lacking the nurturance they needed. They can find themselves then in the throes of parenthood with triggers of their own trauma being activated, or be alone without social support, or maybe just have few ideas about how to handle children's behavior, which can be really hard to manage at times. They may not know how to support their development appropriately, right? Those expectations may be mismatched. In addition, parents that we support in our program might have stressors like food insecurity or housing instability or employment issues, or maybe substance abuse and mental health concerns. When we layer these issues on top of the already challenging work of parenting, we all can see how that dam can break and children can be at risk. All parents need help. So in the mission of protecting children, we must partner with, support, and empower the parents and caregivers in their lives. Children need and want to be with their parents, but it is more than just sort of wanting to be with their parent. Being with them is actually valuable in their long-term development as a person. And to be able to experience secure attachment with their parent throughout childhood has long-term positive consequences for the kid. It is our role and hope then to make those relationships safe and stable and positive in the life of a child. And all of that starts with a supported caregiver. So how do we in our program support caregivers? So a parent connects with us at intake and shares about their history, the current incident or the issues of concern, but also their own history of trauma. We explore their current strengths and resources. What's going well? What are you excelling at right now as a parent or in your family? And what are the vulnerabilities? What supports or knowledge is missing? What are those gaps that we might be able to fill in? After that intake, parents must then make a commitment to 20 weeks of an hour-and-a-half long group with one of our awesome facilitators. In group, parents are engaged in connecting their own experiences, particularly those traumatic ones we've referenced, to their current parenting choices. We look at questions with them such as, how has our own trauma and life experiences shaped our role now as a parent? How can we use new skills and supports to regulate our emotional states and triggers in order to parent in a way that is responsive to the needs of our children? Parents in this group process then kind of share the details of the incident leading them to scan. This is hard. Like any of us sharing the details of your worst decisions with a group. It is, though, an immensely powerful therapeutic experience to have this incident heard and to receive support from a group around that. And casting off the shame and the secrecy of that, we can make space for real behavior change in families. We don't really make changes as human beings unless we're able to have support in some way in doing so. So once there is this space, we in the family support program begin filling in those gaps that I mentioned earlier. What do parents already know about facilitating their baby's brain development, or about setting appropriate boundaries for teenagers? We deliver content about attachment, talking to parents directly about how this behavior change that is tough that they're undergoing, how that can support the long-term success of their family. How can we handle anger and disappointment as parents? We get into physical and social, emotional, intellectual development of children to assist caregivers in developing appropriate expectations for their children. This is so crucial in discipline and shifting that to a more positive mindset. Like knowing that, toddlers really are just a mess sometimes, and that's normal. No, they really can't self-regulate yet, and they need us to be grounded and consistent and offer them tools for soothing. That normalizing of behavior is part of how we support caregivers in doing their role. It's totally normal for your 5-year-old to not be able to sit still and quiet for a long period of time. Instead of this being a harsh discipline moment, how could we offer activities for them to do while you have a task to handle? So delivering this content to caregivers fills in those gaps, and those gaps are what had created risk of abuse. Understanding this information and then being able to have this content also plays a role in motivating the behavior change. Parents want to do well by their children. So what I would like to say is that in my experience of running these groups and supervising them, my experience has been that parents are receptive to the support that's delivered there. Parents who have committed to this 20 weeks and show up over and over demonstrate appreciation and real shifts in their worldview around parenting. They needed help. Remember, all parents do. And many had not yet had the opportunity to access this until they were engaged with us. Parents work hard at empathy, emotional regulation, and stress management while they're in working with us and beyond. They work hard at showing up for their children, and they continue to need support from their community in order to parent in a way that is consistently responsive to their children's needs. The community where parents are supported in this way is, I think, a community where children can really thrive. It strikes me in that being a part of this conversation today, all who are listening, you all too are really showing up as part of that community. So thank you for being here to listen today. It is so good and fun, honestly, to share the work of SCAN with others. I'm really honored to be a part of the mission here, and so exciting to have others take this time to listen. Now, I'd like to shift things over to Tamika Daniel, who is our behavioral health community organizer with SCAN, to share more about our work in that program. Thank you all.
Good morning, everyone. And as Lucy stated, my name is Tamika Daniel, and I'm Greater Richmond SCAN's Behavioral Health Community Organizer. And I've been with SCAN for 2 years now. And I just want to give you guys a little bit of background on me so you can see that I'm a living, breathing example of the support that Lucy was speaking of. As Janine stated, I'm a single mother to 4 wonderful children, born and raised in Richmond, Virginia, lived in some of the worst public housing communities you could think of. And I was one of those parents that Lucy spoke of that wanted to do right by my children, but my sense of doing right by my children was putting all of their needs first and mine's falling by the wayside, not knowing that I would be causing them more harm than good. I was closed off, I was stressed, I was burnt out. Had my first child when I was 18, and at 22, I found out he was developmentally delayed. And then when he was 4, I found out that he had autism. So as you can imagine, I'm a single mom of 2 children, and they're telling me my son has autism. I had no idea what it was about. There weren't resources being dropped in my lap. I was stuck. I didn't know what to do, and I did the best that I could by him. And that's part of how my advocacy work started, because I had to fight tooth and nail for every resource that my son got. All of the different facilities and counselors and behavioral therapists, occupational therapists, I had to figure all of this out on my own. And I vowed to myself, if I ever got in a position, that I would try to prevent any parent or caregiver from having to experience the things that I went through. I have a high school GED. I did not work for 8 years prior to coming to SCAN, again, because most of my time was spent with my child. I could not find adequate childcare for him. So you can imagine trying to go to school or working and your phone's constantly ringing and they're telling you to pick your child up. And it just got to a point where it was either between work or school or my child. And I sacrificed and put my child first. However, in me doing all of those things, I forgot about the most important factor, taking care of myself. And a lot of parents that we come into contact with, this is what happens. We forget about ourselves. We forget that in order to be there for our children and advocate to the best of our ability for them, we have to be at our best. And it wasn't until I put myself in a hospital bed from stress and broke my nose and all of that, that I realized I'm saying that my children are important and they're number one. But if something happens to me, who's going to care for them? And nobody is going to look out for your children the way you do. So that became a turning point for me. And that's where that support that Lucy was speaking of came in for me. I found a place in my community that saw something in me. They did not try to fix me, but they wanted to help me. They wanted to work with me. They treated me like an equal. And that's what most parents and caregivers are seeking. They're looking for people who will work with them, who will take the time with them and have patience with them and understand and believe in them. And from that point, it allowed me to see more value in myself and what I actually had to offer my children. And that ended up leading to my position here at Greater Richmond SCAN. I was seen speaking from a parent's perspective at an event. And long story short, I'm here now. So now with me being at SCAN, I'm using the things that I learned in the 8 years that I did not work by advocating for my son and bringing them here now that I have a larger platform due to SCAN to share this wealth of information with different families and communities. And part of how I'm doing that is just taking all of this information that SCAN gave me, and I created an intro to trauma and resilience training, and I made it relatable for people in underserved communities, like where I'm from and many other communities, to bring awareness and hope that it prevents some of the things that a lot of us experienced when we were coming up, so that our children won't have to experience those things. I also came up with a cultivating authentic community engagement workshop as well. And that just helps to bring awareness and show people what it would look like to collaborate with your fellow community members. And last but not least, one of my favorites is I came up with a caregiver advocacy series. It's on Greater Richmond SCAN Facebook page. It also resides on our YouTube page. And just a little bit of background about that. With all of the advocacy talk that I would hear and me realizing how important it was, I realized that it's not that parents and caregivers didn't want to, but a lot of the times they don't know how to correctly advocate for the needs of themselves or their children. So for me, it was, how do we bring this information? How do we bring this awareness? How do we help prevent so many families from going through some of the things that I experienced and so many other people have experienced? So the plan was to do a live streaming session every 2 weeks at 6 p.m. every other Wednesday. And this was during a time when the pandemic had just hit, everybody was zoomed out, and we were not gaining any traction. However, me and my colleague, we strongly realized that this was needed. how do we get it into people's homes so they can hear it? And we came up with the plan to pre-record these sessions. And what these sessions included was me and my colleague, usually we were the moderators, and we would try to always have a parent's perspective and an expert on whatever topic we were talking about at that moment. And some of the topics that we talked about was just an introduction to advocacy. What does advocacy look like? What are the different topics of advocacy, like the political level of advocacy, advocating for yourself, advocating for the needs of someone else? We spoke on advocacy and education. How do you advocate for the needs of your child in the school system, which could be so tricky, especially if you add on layers, if your child has any type of special needs or IEPs or 504 plans. We talked on the topics of mental health as well. We touched on advocacy and safety, how to properly talk to your children and prepare them for the world that we live in without creating a negative aspect at the same time. Teaching them how to look out for different signs and symptoms of things that are just not okay. We spoke on physical wellness and advocacy, how to advocate for rest for yourself. As parents, you need rest. As a caregiver, you need to take the time to take care of yourself. And sometimes that's hard. You have people who are taking care of children, they may be taking care of family members, and things get stressful, they get hard. And in order to be able to take care of them, you have to take care of yourself. So we wanted to show people that it's okay to put yourself first and to advocate for rest. But how do you do that when you feel like there's not enough time in the day? We also spoke on advocacy and finances. That plagues a lot of our homes as well, just not knowing how to manage, how to get everything in line and make room for this or that. As Lucy stated, bills, and then you have food, you have doctor's appointments, you have transportation. So just really wanting to touch on all of these important topics to families, to give them adequate resources and let them know that there are things that are out there for us. Unfortunately, it's not falling in our laps, but I'm hoping that with my continuation at SCAN, I can continue to bring awareness to advocacy and help prevent as much of the things that me and so many other people have to experience and have experienced. And I want to now turn things over to Sarah Bailey. And thank you guys for having me this morning.
Hello and good morning. My name is Sarah Bailey and I have two kids that attend Circle Preschool program. We ended up at Circle Preschool program almost a year ago. Due to sexual abuse and trauma, we were placed on a waiting list for about 6 months until I received a call that there was an opening with a program called Circle Preschool program. I relocated to Chester to be away from my son's abuser and the trauma of having to be in the same county for myself and for him. Although it is a drive for us, it is more than worth it. This program has helped not only my son, but myself as well. Judah went into the program with being afraid of men, weak communication skills, and his favorite color being gray. He has graduated from the program and his favorite colors are now orange and blue. He's not afraid of men and his communication skills have improved as well as mine. And the program also helped prepare Judah for kindergarten, where he is performing academically very well. Circle Preschool program has helped not only me as a mother, a caretaker, but also as an individual with my own trauma. I no longer blame myself for what happened to my son, or at least I try not to, which can be hard. Instead, I accept the healing process and the pain that comes along with it. I nor Judah are not alone in the process, and everyone at Circle Preschool is here for us every step of the way. Even after graduating, Judah attends sessions as well that help him weekly. I used to be embarrassed to ask for help as if I were an inconvenience. Doing it on your own for so long, you get used to it. Circle Preschool has taught me that it is okay to ask for help, and it is okay to be scared. They've helped me emotionally to overcome my trauma and my son's trauma. They've helped me financially, but by not turning us away and providing resources when times of need. There was a time specifically I was confident in asking for help. I was short on my rent payment with no family to turn to. There was a donor. I'm not sure how or why, but I was given an envelope one week, and in that envelope, it contained what I needed to pay off the rest of my rent for that month. I am very thankful for the program at Circle Preschool, and I hope this program touches many other caretakers and changes many more lives, because I know it has mine. I am a mother of 4, and I work a full-time job of 50 to 60 hours a week, and I'm currently now in college full-time. And no matter what, my kids come first, and they always will. And I'm very appreciative of this program. And I talk about this program every single day because of how it has helped me and my family. So I think every single person has helped this program to become the program that it is today. And that's it.
Hello, my name is Margaret Cagley, and I'm a proud member of the SCAN Board of Directors. As you've heard today from some great people who represent different programs, as well as a very wonderful client of SCAN, and Brad and Janine. SCAN has been around for 3 decades now. And during that time, the understanding and the science and the research around child abuse and neglect has really deepened and expanded to include childhood trauma, toxic stress, so much more than we knew those 30 years ago when SCAN started. And like this research and this learning, SCAN has evolved and as well. Our services have expanded and deepened. Our team here at SCAN, and I say here because I am here at the Enrico Child Advocacy Center, is nationally recognized. We've earned a reputation at SCAN, Janine, led by wonderful Janine, who is very modest and is making a face at me for saying that. The reputation is national, and SCAN has thought leaders on board doing this work. We're so lucky, trailblazers, thought leaders, right here in Richmond. You know, you can see why, based on what Lucy and Tamika said, Janine, also why this is true. My own reasons for devoting much of my time to SCAN for the past 20 years, 15 as a board member, 5 as a volunteer, actually for the family support program, when it was the only program of SCAN, I believe, back 20 years ago. Really is my own personal upbringing in a very loving family. My mother emphasized to me, and I've said this before at this very breakfast, to whom much is given, much is expected. And what she meant by that was not necessarily financial, although we were generous to our church, but it was really more giving of yourself. And I certainly don't want to disappoint my mother. You know, I get a lot from SCAN. I like to give a lot, but what I get is this fulfillment of knowing that people like Lucy and Tamika and Janine are helping children. I love what Lucy said about there are no bad parents in the family support program. And sometimes, like on the way to work today when my son was plucking my last nerve and I might not have been as gracious and patient as I should have been, you know, we all need help. We all need guidance, and that SCAN can do that with people, for people who have, you know, less resources than many, is just amazing. And Sarah is a great example of that. So to me, the services provided by SCAN to the community are actually priceless. So if you were able, and if you like, I feel that you have been given much in this life, I would invite you to give a gift today to Scan. I think there's probably a link available to do it online. And so I hope you will consider giving a gift to Scan today. And in closing, I just want to thank you for being here. Thank you for caring, for spending the last 45 minutes or so with us. I know everybody's busy, and I hope you did have breakfast or are going to have breakfast now. So thanks for being here.